Now that we've seen how to declare date and time fields, let's perform some example calculations with them to show how they can be used. Now you probably know that using date and time fields within calculations is common practice in programming business systems because you often have to determine differences between two dates, generating dates such as invoice dates, delivery dates, salary payment dates, and so on. So let's go through some examples of how we can use dates within calculations to both generate new dates and find out the difference between dates. So first of all, let's tidy up this program a little bit. Okay, so what we're going to do is define an employee date. Still tidying up. Okay, so we'll use the data statement. And we'll define a start date for an employee. Tell you what, let's not assign a value straight away, we'll do that in the code. So there we have the data statement. And we'll assign a value to the variable. With a start date of May the 15th, 2009. And remember, date fields are character fields, so we have to enclose the date in single quotes. Now let's define another field. And we'll call this one today's date. And for today's date, we're going to assign the system variable to pick up the date of the system right now. We will then add a calculation to determine the length of service for this employee. So we will create a new variable called LOS. Together with a simple calculation, and I must remember to add in the length of service. We'll make it an integer. In the last action, we will just write out the length of service. Okay, it looks pretty straightforward. Let's just execute the code. So as we can see, the length of service is 1,160 days. So the calculation has given us the length of service in the number of days. Let's do another example where we want to add 20 days to today's date. So it's quite simple. Let's just copy some code. We will use the same today's date variable and assign it to the system date again. We'll create a new variable called days count, and we'll assign it a value of 20. Don't know why I'm using quotes. It's going to be an integer. And we'll create a new variable called future date. Oops. which will take the calculation of today's date plus the day count variable, which will contain the value of 20. And then we can write out the future date. Let's go add the data variables. Have I made a spelling mistake? Oh dear, am I going blind? There we go. Oh dear, look at this. I can't type. Do apologise for this. There we go, that's better. So now we should have 20 days added to today's date and see the output. Here we go. So 20 days on from today will be the 7th of August 2012. If you remember in a previous module, we worked with subfields. Well, all the same logic applies when working with subfields that are based on date and time fields. So let's create an example to change one of our date fields to represent the 20th of the current month. So again, I'll copy some code. We will leave today's date equaling the system date. And what we will do is make the day subfield of our date equal to 20. Now currently it's the 18th of July, so the system date would be the 18th. We can update the last two characters of our date field with the value of 20. What I'll do, just to save on a tiny piece of processing, is include the value 20 in quotes to make it represent a string rather than an integer. And all we need to do is write out today's date. Oops, my apologies. Oops, a tiny error. Let me just correct that. There we go. And we'll test the program. As you can see, the output now says the 20th of July 2012. For completeness, let's just output the system date as well. So the system date is the 18th of July, then our output date is the 20th. Now in our last example, in this section, we will show how we can determine the last day of the previous month. So again, let's be super lazy, copy and paste. We'll leave today's date, and what we're going to do is set the day to the 1st. Then we're going to show how we can subtract a value from today's date. And we'll subtract the value of 1. So today's the 18th of July. So then this row of code here will make our date equal the 1st of July, And then when we take the value of 1 away, which means 1 day, we should end up with the last day of June. Let's stick an underline in the last section. Pretty it up, check it, and then test. And there we can see we found the last day of the previous month.